Hi, everyone. I'm Heather McGhee. I'm really excited to be here tonight on this evening to be with all of you at Netroots Nation. I am a number of different things, but right now I'm wearing the hat as my role as the board co-chair for Color of Change and a longtime Senator Elizabeth Warren superfan and co-conspirator. I am really excited to introduce Elizabeth Warren. Of course, she needs no introduction really, but she's the senator from Massachusetts. She's a career-long advocate for economic fairness for people who've been knocked down and shut out. She's a visionary who gets big things done. Before she'd even considered running for office, which was not so long ago, Elizabeth Warren created the first new government agency structurally empowered to stop Wall Street from ripping people off. And most recently, with her trailblazing presidential campaign, she became the first presidential candidate to eschew big dollar donations and spend all of her big rallies in a direct conversation with the people who came to see her, often standing in line, talking to people, hearing their dreams pressed into the palm of her hands with notes and whispered hopes for our future until the wee hours of the morning. It's that kind of dedication that has made her one of Netroots Nation's most exciting folks to have year after year, and one of the most exciting people we have to show us what big structural change is going to look like. So I'm so excited to introduce Elizabeth Warren and to have this conversation about what is next and what we all need to do. Welcome, Senator.
Oh, thank you, Heather. God, what a fabulous introduction. And, you know, it's just great to be here with one of my most favorite co-conspirators in the entire world. For all of you who have ever had a chance to work with Heather, you know what a clear and true voice she is for progressive change in this country. So thank you, Heather. Thanks for doing this today. And let me just start by saying, hello, Netroots. It is great to be back. You know, every year I come to Netroots, I leave feeling inspired, determined, optimistic, and this time it sucks. I mean, let's face it. I miss all of you in person. I miss the selfies. I miss the places that we meet. Does anyone on this remember Las Vegas in August many years ago? I hope we really got a discount on those rooms. Or Rhode Island. That was in 2012 when you all gave me a huge boost when I ran for the Senate the first time. So this is just a way of saying I sure wish that we could all connect person to person. I am so proud of the movement that we have built together. And I am proud of the big structural change that we are fighting so hard to create. The problems that we face are huge. America is crying out for leadership. And what has Donald Trump done in response? He has ignored science. He's fanned the flames of racism. And he's employed tactics straight from the playbooks of fascists and dictators. So yeah, this is a time of unprecedented crisis. But I wake up every day with a heart full of hope. And here's why. Vice President Biden is meeting this moment. Now, his long commitment is not to himself or to his own advancement. He has a deep understanding of how to make government work for the people. He believes in competent government that helps people. And most of all, he is a basically decent person. So this week, Joe Biden selected Senator Kamala Harris to run alongside him. I've known Kamala for a very long time. We worked together during the financial crisis, back when she was California's Attorney General. And we have continued working together through our time right now in the Senate. She will be a great partner for Joe Biden in making our government a force for good in the fight for social, racial, and economic justice. We need to make sure that Joe and Kamala are elected in November so that they can get big things done for the American people. And I am 100% committed to making that happen. But here's the thing. Nobody does this on their own. A strong grassroots movement needs everyone. So I really hope that you will be in this fight too. And speaking of in this fight, that's what Heather and I are here to talk about today. So, Heather, I'm delighted to be here with you. And I think you're the one doing the questions here, and you're going to put me on the hot seat, right?
Yes.
Good.
Absolutely. Well, first thing I want to talk about is, this moment, right? I mean, you ran this historic campaign that was really centered on big plans, big ideas. You took the time to explain the economy and our democracy to people. You took the time to teach the American people about corruption and how it's not just some issue that, affects people who really care about money and politics and good government. It affects our ability to, buy a house and save for the future. It affects our clean air and water. It affects everything. It affects racial justice. And you said, I've got a plan for that. And I think that was something that was resonant with so many people. And people really have looked to you as one of the major leading lights for delivering the kind of big structural change that we need. And, there are a lot of people right now who are worried that because Joe Biden and the campaign, didn't endorse all of your ideas, he doesn't come from sort of a big structural change wing of the Democratic Party, that those plans are going to be shelved. And so I just want to know how you're thinking about that, how progressives should be thinking about this moment.
So it's a good question, Heather. And look, let's be honest, these fights are hard. And at times, it can feel like our labor is in vain. But I am here today to remind each and every person that this is a fight to put government on the side of the people. To me, that's what being a progressive is all about. And we don't give in to fear, and we don't back down. We persist. As Democrats, we know that government can be a powerful force for good, but only when decisions made in Washington begin with compassion and with a determination to uplift everyone. And that's what Donald Trump is just simply incapable of doing. And that's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are committed to doing. So for me, it's that simple. Pick any issue that you care about, and it is all on the line in this election. So if it's dismantling systemic racism, think about our choice. Donald Trump stirs up as much racial hatred as he can. Joe Biden has been clear that as president, he will strengthen America's commitment to justice. The story is about how student loan debt crushes opportunity. Donald Trump keeps Betsy DeVos in place, where she is squeezing our students dry. Joe is in the fight for student loan debt cancellation and tuition-free public college. If you know the importance of appointing judges who are committed to justice, just remember, the Republicans stole a Supreme Court seat. And Donald Trump has appointed racist, homophobic, xenophobic, anti-voter judges to lifetime positions on the bench. Joe Biden has promised to appoint U.S. Supreme Court justices and federal judges who look like America, who understand the importance of individual civil rights and civil liberties, judges who will respect essential precedents like Brown versus the Board of Education and Roe versus Wade, judges who come from different backgrounds, who see the world through the lens of their experience. So to me, the changes are really, the choices here are really pretty obvious, but look, but even with all of that said, all of the ways that the progressive wing of the party has moved the center closer to where the country needs us to be. Even so, there are still going to be times that we're going to disagree. I ran on progressive values that I deeply believe in, and I lost. But you know what gives me hope? Joe Biden is a leader who listens. He builds coalitions, he hears multiple perspectives, and his animating concern is to help the most people possible. There is so much opportunity for progressive victories with Joe Biden. And we've already seen in areas like bankruptcy and student loan debt that he has embraced the progressive vision. This pandemic has also changed the world, and it's changed our politics here in America. It's made it clear that in times of crisis, state and local officials play an essential role in protecting our communities. So what this says to me is that now more than ever, we need new leaders, we need new voices, we need new people fighting for a government that works for everyone. We need to elect Democrats up and down the ballot to put leaders with progressive values in positions of power. It is simply not enough to win the White House. We also have to hold the House. We have to take back the Senate. We need to win in states all around this country, state houses. We need to put people at the local level who are progressives. We need to put people in positions where they can enact big structural changes. So I'm hopeful. I'm working hard, but I'm hopeful.
You are working hard. I have to say, it really does seem like you haven't stopped since the campaign. Every day there are 4 different fights that Elizabeth Warren is picking with somebody who needs a punch in the nose, whether it's the Postmaster General, whether it's, some obscure Wall Street banker who's not doing the right thing. It just feels like you're always on top of the fights that need to be picked. And I mean the good ones. And it makes me remember just something that happened earlier this summer, which was that, at a time when it's Mitch McConnell's Senate and we have, as Democrats, very, very little power, you were able to extract an extraordinary win, which was you were able to win people over. And by people, I actually mean, the Republican majority in the Congress to put together a veto-proof majority for your amendment to strip the U.S. military from all honors and namings for Confederates, to take the U.S. Confederacy out of the U.S. military. It's something Donald Trump was opposed to, and it was something that the Republican Party, the members of the Senate who have not been able to find their backbone on many, many issues, were able to. And obviously that's because of the strength of the movement for Black Lives. But there was so much going on. I feel like a lot of people didn't see that fight. I'd love to have you talk a little bit about that. How did that happen, and what lessons does that victory kind of give us for the future?
So I'll tell you exactly what it does. It says, when you see your opening, take it. I'm on Senate Armed Services Committee, and I've been in a lot of fights from that place, principally around nuclear weapons, the fact that the Trump administration is pulling out of the treaties on nuclear weapons, on non-proliferation, on trying to make sure that we are always in communication with other nuclear powers, and about putting more money into our nuclear weapons program. This is a fight I've been in all along, and I just keep banging away at that one every single year. The fight that we treat our military better, that we pay them better, that we do better on housing, that we do better on their education for their children. That's been a big part. The fights that Kirsten Gillibrand, and I always want to do a shout out here, that she was fighting before I ever even got to the Senate, about dealing with sexual assault and sexual harassment in the military. So there are a lot of ongoing fights, but it was the right moment on the Confederate generals and naming. And so I put together an amendment, and there were a lot of folks who said to me, don't push this. A negative vote's going to hurt us. Just leave it alone. The country's moving in the right direction. And all I could hear in my head every time I heard this was, with all deliberate speed. Yeah. And, we'll get there eventually. Well, today needs to be eventually. Now needs to be eventually. So we're doing what's called the markup, where everybody's in the room who's on Senate Armed Services Committee. And of course, it had been blocked, and Hoff was not going to put it into the overall bill. So I brought it up in committee. And by golly, there were a lot of people who spoke out in favor of it. Doug Jones, Tim Kaine were just eloquent on it. Angus King spoke up, and there were Republicans who listened to that. They had some back and forth, but at the end of the day, we got our vote, we got it in, and it's in the House. And that means, although the bill now goes to conference, we're going to get rid of our nation honoring the people who took up arms against our country for the purpose of preserving slavery. No military bases named after them, no streets, no awards, no prizes, no dormitories. No, the federal government is going to back out of that business. And you know how I think of it, Heather? It's not, this is not going to solve the problems that we've got with racial justice. But to me, it's an important down payment, one that we get even now with Donald Trump in the White House, with the Republicans in control of the Senate. It is a down payment on the America that we want to build.
Thank you so much. Speaking of the America that we want to build, I think if you look at all the different polling, all the different grassroots organizations, including many that didn't endorse Joe Biden, many that wanted you to be the vice presidential pick, it's open and shut. Everyone understands that, progressives are out front. That's what we are. And therefore, sometimes it takes a minute for the country to get caught up to us, but that doesn't mean we won't keep fighting and keep organizing and building. So everyone, I would say, is, all in on the election. But then it's the hard part, right? And I've started to think about how, if we are lucky, if we do everything right, if Donald Trump and his enablers in Congress don't steal this election by gutting the US Postal Service, if we don't allow the Russians and whomever else to, lie and trick us out of, creating the kind of governing majority of Americans who want a more just America. If we do basically the impossible and win the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and get those all firmly in the Democratic corner, then we've still got what we knew in the 2009 first administration of the Obama administration, when there was a Democratic trifecta, and you and I were in the trenches after the financial crisis, trying to win some safeguards against Wall Street greed with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and other safeguards. And in that situation, Senator, the people we had to win over weren't the Republicans. The Republicans were in the minority. The Republicans had, like they have today, made themselves truly irrelevant to the big questions of our time. And so, the conversations that we were having, the fights, the organizing, they were within the Democratic Party. And I think a lot of people who are active today don't remember what that was like. And, if, again, this is not assuming we'll be there, but the best case scenario is that's what we'll have. Free college, universal health care, universal child care, a big Green New Deal. Those are all going to be sort of intra-party debates. So what lessons do you have? Because you were actually not in office then. You were on the outside, you're working closely with grassroots advocates. You were really winning the ideas war out there in the media. What lesson do you have from then, and then from being in the Senate now, how we win. How do we win sort of an inside the family conversation in the best of times?
So this is hard. That's what we have to remember when we start this. But you don't get what you don't fight for. And this is what progressive movement has learned. We have gotten stronger. We get out there and fight. And the way I see it is that at every crucial turning point in our nation's history, the spirit of American imagination has been the driving force of progress and change. You know, the rich and powerful have always tried to rig the system in their favor. There's nothing new in this. Today, we mark the 85th anniversary of Social Security, you know, and I can't help but think about the woman who made it happen, Frances Perkins. The rich and powerful had been writing the rules to boost their own profits, not to keep people safe, not to help people be more secure, but she got out there and fought back. And so did lots of people across this country. Throughout our history, the forces of division and greed and corruption meet their demise when ordinary people have come together to fight for economic and political power. So I think of it this way. Right now, people are suffering, people are sick, people are scared. The coronavirus has laid bare the deep racial and economic inequities that existed in America long before this virus hit our shores. This virus has forced tens of millions of people to see more clearly than ever what's broken in our nation and what's broken in our communities. And this matters because when more people see what's broken, then we've got a better chance to change it. And if we choose resiliency and creativity, we can make change. Racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice, they are possible. But understand this, no one's going to give it to us. We have to fight and fight hard to make it happen. So I'm all in this fight for November 3rd, but understand this, we get the House, we get the Senate, we get the White House, then we just double down on the fight.
Oh, okay. So let's zoom forward in time. We are in, let's say, the first 100 days of 2021 in a Biden-Harris administration. You are part of the majority party in the Senate. What are some of the first things that we need to get done? I know that you've been extremely influential in the party platform process, extremely influential in the Democrats' response to the coronavirus, and according to some reports, you've been extremely influential in Vice President Biden's thinking. So let's just assume that you still have the ear of your colleagues in the Senate and, of course, of your allies in the White House. What do you think we need to do?
So what we have to start with is we've got to get our arms around this coronavirus. This notion that somehow the Republicans put forward that you have to pick between our health and our economy, man, have they got this wrong. Until we get this virus under control, we can't rebuild this economy. So it's wherever we are on the virus. And by the way, it's not rocket science. It's the things we already know about at this point. It's masks, it's contact tracing, it's making sure that there are enough supplies for testing, adequate testing and adequate protective equipment for everyone. I mean, those are just the obvious pieces, but we've got to get our arms around this, hope that we're moving toward both treatment and vaccine. The other thing we've got to do is we're going to have to do emergency work on the economic front. It's got to be that we get money down into the hands of the people who need it. So that's going to be expanded unemployment. It's going to be help for small businesses. It's going to be housing in terms of protecting people in their housing. protecting them against evictions, protecting them against foreclosures. It's going to make sure that everyone has got access to the health care that they need. And it's going to be putting resources in for our children, for childcare, for early childhood, for K-12, so that our schools can open, so that our schools can be there, so that parents will be able to go back to work. It's going to be relieving the pressure on people who have student loan debt. It's going to be police reforms. They've got to be right there at the top of the agenda. Now, I say these things because it's so urgent, and I know the temptation is you could start to blur out. You can say, wait a minute, we've got so many things we need to do. But here's the thing. These are things that touch people's lives every day. And we need to show that we are committed to change, not nibbling around the edges, but big structural change, the kind of change that really will make a difference. And when we start to win, when we show that government can deliver, when we show that we're serious about police reforms, and here are the pieces of what we're doing, when we show that we are willing to put the resources in so that every baby in this country has access to childcare, affordable childcare, so that mamas and daddies will be able to go to work, and so that their childcare workers are paid a decent wage that is consistent with the responsibility of the jobs that these people take on. When we start to show, here's a piece we can do, here's a piece we can do, you know what happens? We can do another piece and another piece and another piece and another piece. It crowds into my brain. Early in this process, we have got to first make sure that we are protecting our dreamers, that we are doing through executive order what we can do around immigration to protect people who are here, but also that finally we can demand that our Congress make the real changes statutorily that we need to make. We need to get everybody on a path to citizenship. These are changes we need to make. Here's the good news, though. It's a big list. It's a big list. And it's a list about the things the president will be able to do by himself and with help from Kamala and all of his administration. It's a list of the things Congress needs to do. It's also a list of the things the agencies themselves need to do. Have I got a list for the Department of Education? Oh, and a list for the Treasury Department and a list for the EPA. We got a lot of people who want to do that work.
Yeah.
So I think of this, as you ask me, what are we going to start doing on January 21st? And my answer is it's actually all the pieces we start putting in place at the latest, starting on November 4th, the day after the win, that people are lined up and they are ready to go. Donald Trump has broken so much. What Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to take is going to be unlike anything we've seen in modern history. So what we have to do is bring an end to the corruption and make our government in Washington work for the people. But like I said, I feel so optimistic. We have a real opportunity to do this, and so many good, smart, energized, passionate, committed people who want to do it. And if we have that grassroots movement behind us really pushing to make it happen, we're going to get it done.
Thank you, Senator. I do have to say, as we were talking about the coronavirus, I do just want to say my condolences to you for having lost your big brother early on in this crisis. And, you have personally felt what happens when someone in power doesn't care and is completely incompetent, and the crisis that's going on in American families all around the country, the fear and the anguish, reached into your family as well. It's enough to, I would assume, make you boil over with rage. It's certainly enough to make me boil over with rage. But you have continued to find a way amidst the grief and the disappointments to pick yourself up and keep fighting, and to keep fighting for the American people. And I think in many ways, all of us are wondering how can we do that too? Because people can go online and feel like it's an absolute horror show. There's one more stressor, there's one more concern in their family, in their work. People are hungry, people are concerned, people are really feeling like the government may not care at all, and that the America that we've all been fighting for may actually be slipping out of our grasp. But a lot of people look to you, Senator, to wonder, to ask, how do I keep fighting? And so with our last moments, I'm just wondering if you could give some personal advice for people who are disappointed and scared and are grieving.
So it is hard. I lost my brother. And one of the hardest parts was once they took him to the hospital, I never got to speak to him again. And we got the reports, third hand from the nurses, and went through, as families do, he may not make it through the night, wait, he's going to do better. And then he's taken a turn for the worse, and then we lost him. And I think a lot about the fact that none of us could be there with him. Not his wife, not his kids or grandkids, not my other brothers, not his baby sister. And I don't know what it was like for him at the end. And I didn't get to tell him I loved him. That's hard. But what I remember every time I think about this is I'm not the only one this happened to. We're now at over 160,000 families that have gone through the same thing, that have their own horror stories about what's happened. And the thing about it is, it didn't have to be like this. It did not have to be this bad. We could have done better. And instead, the United States of America now has the highest death rate in the world. For me, the way I get through this is to say, I best honor my brother by getting up every day and saying there's going to be some accountability in this country. And in a democracy, the accountability is what happens on election day. So I'm in this fight to make sure that Donald Trump is held accountable for his incompetence and held accountable for his indifference, for his disregard for the lives of tens of thousands of people across this country and hundreds, thousands more around the world. I am determined that he will be accountable and that our next elected leaders will also be held accountable to the people. This is what we've got. I support Joe Biden in this because he's fundamentally a decent man. And I'll do everything I can to help him get elected on November 3rd and to help him build a government that works. A government that's not just competent, but a government that's got a moral compass, and that the moral compass is not who makes the most money or how do we make the stock market get higher. The moral compass is, are we building real opportunity for all of our kids? Are we moving toward dealing with our ugly legacy of racial injustice? Are we moving toward at least plans in place to build some economic fairness into our system. One of the things about running for office, one of the things about being a senator, one of the things about coming back to Netroots every year is the chance to be with people who may be angry, may be exhausted, may be fearful, may be discouraged, but who all have in them that spark of optimism. You know, running for office is an act of optimism. Getting out there and putting your views out there is an act of optimism. Running your blog, interviewing people, writing books, writing articles, writing tweets, it's an act of optimism because you do it based on the notion that your voice matters. And the voices of hundreds of people matter, thousands of people matter, millions of people matter. It's the belief that if we get in this fight and we fight hard enough and we fight long enough and we fight smart enough and we fight with diligence and with passion and we don't back up, that we will make change and we will make it now. I so believe in what we can do together, and I'm so looking forward to it. That's what we're going to do, Heather. You and me and all the co-conspirators on this Zoom.
That's exactly right. Oh, thank you so much, Senator Warren. Let's not just be allies for one another. Let's be co-conspirators in this fight. Let's stand together. Let's have each other's backs. Let's help each other have backbone for the tough fights ahead. Thank you all at Netroots Nation for listening, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Good night. Have a good weekend and stay safe.